Hey everybody, Jace Line here from Skills and Drills Baseball Training, and I'm right back here on the couch for another informative episode of On the Ball. Now, if you happen to miss my first episode, make sure you head back through the Facebook feed to check it out. It's about one simple step that you can do to your glove right now to maximize its performance on the diamond next season. You don't want to miss it. Now, if there's one thing that I know every coach and player is interested in, it's how to increase the velocity and accuracy of your throws and pitches on the diamond. Now, this is an extremely broad topic, and there's a ton of ways that you can do this through form and mechanics, but today I just want to talk about specifically the grip and how you should grip a baseball so you can increase both the speed and accuracy of your throws and pitches. So you might be surprised how many elements of a grip actually affect both the speed and the accuracy of your throws and pitches. So in order to cover this properly, I want to make sure I start with some of the most common bad habits that I see with players. I'm then going to go through what would constitute a quality grip, and at the end, I'm going to give you some ideas of how you can improve your grip at home. Now, before we jump into the common bad habits section of the video, I want you to do something for me really quick. I want you to grab a camera. It could be something as simple as a smartphone or a tablet, and I want you to take either multiple photos or a short video of the grip that you currently have. That way, as we go through some of the bad habits, you can more easily diagnose which ones you might be suffering from and then make necessary adjustments as we head through the video. Now that you have a better understanding of what your grip actually looks like, let me ask you a couple questions. Are you using more than 3 fingers to throw the ball? Are the tips of any of your fingers on the hide or the white part of the baseball? Are the tips of any of your fingers on the sides of the ball? Or is there little to no gap between the ball and your hand? If you answered yes to any of these questions, the unfortunate truth is you're suffering from one of the most common mistakes I see players making when it comes to gripping a baseball. Now, don't take that the wrong way. It's actually a good thing. That means through the course of this video, all you need to do is make the necessary changes and you'll be able to see improvements in both your velocity and accuracy in your throws. Now that I've shown you the most common bad habits, let's go through how those can actually be affecting both your speed and your accuracy. First, I want to start off by explaining how having more than 3 fingers on a baseball can be affecting both your speed and your accuracy. And the way that I want to do that is by using a pitching machine as an example. So if you've ever been to a hitting cage and you've been able to use the pitching machine, I'm sure you've noticed just how accurate those things are. It doesn't matter how many baseballs you put through the machine, it continues to deliver strike after strike after strike. And the reason for that is it's been designed and built in such a way to eliminate as many errors as humanly possible. Really, all it takes is both of those wheels to turn at the same speed every time, and as long as the machine doesn't move, the ball ends up in the same location downrange. Now, we as humans, we don't have that luxury. We have what's known as human error. And really what that means is there's going to be constantly variations in our process, and especially in our throwing mechanics. Now, what that means is the more of my body that's in contact with this ball, there's a higher chance of that human error or variability coming through in the process. So it takes 3 fingers to hold a ball minimum because you need the thumb to support the bottom. But the more that I add, there's a higher chance that there's going to be variability or error in any of those extra fingers, and that's going to definitely have an effect on my accuracy downrange. Now, adding more fingers to the baseball doesn't just affect your accuracy, it also reduces your speed. And the reason for that is super simple. The more fingers that are in contact with this ball, the more friction the ball encounters as it leaves the hands. So really, as you're trying to add speed, the more fingers are acting as a braking system on that ball, and they're reducing the exit velocity from the hand. Now let's talk about how having the tips of your fingers on the hide or the white part of the baseball can be affecting both your speed and your accuracy. So if you haven't noticed, this is the most slippery part of a baseball. Let's imagine I'm in a game and my hands are sweating, it's hot out in the summer, maybe it just rained and my hands are a little bit muddy. Or if you've ever picked up a new ball, especially for the younger age group, they are super slippery. So if I put the tips of my fingers on that ball, there's a super high chance that my grip actually slips when I go to throw it. And obviously that's going to affect how the ball ends up downrange. Now, I know how I just mentioned that by adding more fingers to the seam, you increase the friction on the ball, and that can decrease the speed. But some friction is needed to generate the speed from the push out of the hand. And the way that you can think about that is if you had a car that was sitting on ice. If you hit the gas and those tires are continually spinning, there's no speed involved. Those tires need friction to push the ball forward. And that's the exact same way with a baseball. As long as my fingers are on those seams, now I have the friction of those seams to push the ball and generate speed forward. If I'm sitting on this white part of the ball, now I'm sitting on the ice, the theoretical ice, and as my fingers slip, they don't get that extra thrust and push towards the mitt. So now, let's move on to how having fingers on the side of the baseball can affect your throw. And really, this is from more of an accuracy standpoint than a speed standpoint. So something that I commonly see is instead of the thumb being directly underneath on the bottom of the ball, I start to see that climb up more and more on the side of the ball. Then as this pushes on the side, it wants equal pressure from the other side, so you'll start to see the ring finger get involved, and even sometimes the pinky gets involved. So now these two fingers, or these sets of fingers on the side, are competing against each other. They're putting more and more pressure on the ball, which increases the friction and decreases the speed. But also, the pressure on the side of the ball increases the odds that there's going to be an error laterally downrange. So if you struggle a lot with lefts and rights, there's a high chance that you have an issue with putting side pressure on the baseball. Last but not least, let's talk about how having that ball too close to your palm is affecting both your speed and your accuracy. So sticking with the common themes of variability, the more of my body that's in contact with this ball, the higher chance that there's going to be variability and an error and human error occurring in the process, and it's going to throw that ball off downrange. Now in this scenario where I have no gap and that ball is all the way in the palm, my whole entire hand is involved in that process. As opposed to if I'm only using the tips of my fingers, there's much less of my body involved and there's much less chance of human error and variability occurring. So the more variables, the more it's going to affect your accuracy. Now, from a speed standpoint, again, we're going back to the common theme of friction. If you can imagine, if I'm palming that baseball, if I'm choking that ball out and there's no gap between that ball and my hand, that ball is encountering a whole lot of friction as it leaves the hand, and that's acting as the braking mechanism and slowing that ball down. There are also a few other reasons that you want to move that grip out to the tip of the fingers. Number one, you're going to gain that extra push from the fingers, and that could be 5 to 8 miles an hour for free, where if it's all the way in the palm of the hand, you're going to have to throw that thing like a shot put. So I want to get that extra push from the fingers. The other thing with the tip of the fingers is this is where we have fine motor skills and extreme dexterity. That's where I can really, especially from a pitching standpoint, I can really pick the location where I want that ball to go. Where if I'm using my entire hand to throw the ball, now it's a much larger movement and it's not near as precise downrange. So I want those fingers to add the push, and I want those fingers to really get a precise measure on directionality of the baseball as it leaves my hand. So now that I've explained how those bad habits really are affecting both your speed and your accuracy, let's move on to what a quality grip really looks like. In order to show you that, I'm going to use the gold standard when it comes to both speed and accuracy, and that's the four-seam fastball. So first, let's explain why it's actually called a four-seam fastball. And the reason for that is as it leaves your hands, all four seams are rotating against the wind. So let's count them out. Here's one seam, 2, 3, 4, and then we're back to the original seam. Now, something about the seams that's going to help you get to that grip is I want the seams coming across my fingers. Okay? So I'm going to put the seams heading left to right, and my fingers are going to come right on top of those red seams, thumbs underneath, and this is what that grip looks like from the side. From the front, you can see fingers on top, thumb underneath. From the right side, from the top, and from the bottom. So we'll do that again. So now that you know what a quality four-seam fastball grip looks like and all its advantages, it's time for you to practice at home. So now if you're a viewer who's watching and you've never been exposed to this grip, maybe you have a lot of those bad habits to overcome, this is all I want you to do. Take a ball, put it in your glove, and I want you to practice getting that grip correct. Make sure you're following all the guidelines that we talked about before. Make sure you're using just 3 fingers. Make sure the tips of those fingers are on the seams and not the white part. Make sure the thumb is underneath and there's no side pressure on either side of the baseball, and make sure there's a good gap between the ball and your palm. So if you have a lot of those previous bad habits and holding a ball this way feels really strange to you, another good practice is just while you're watching TV, literally just hold that grip. The longer that the ball is in your hands this way, the more it's going to increase that muscle memory, and over time you'll become more and more comfortable holding that four-seam fastball. Now I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that are already really familiar with the four-seam fastball grip, but that doesn't mean that there's not room for improvement here. This grip is what I want to use in any and all scenarios possible, which also means in the field, and when time is of the essence, it's really hard to get to this grip. I think a lot of people, they just grab the ball, find seams, and throw it. And yes, obviously, there's going to be scenarios where time is of the essence and that ball has to leave my hand, so I'll find any seam possible and relay through that play. But if I can, I want to use the fastest and most accurate grip, during my time on the field as well. So, something that I can do to help move this into the actual game and into my fielding process is I take this ball, toss it up in the air, and I try to get to that four-seam grip as fast as I can. Throw it up in the air, boom, I'm trying to get to that grip as fast as I can. And over time, you'll get quicker and quicker and quicker learning the muscle memory, how that ball feels, how to rotate it and get to that grip. And then when you're on the diamond, you field a ground ball, boom, next thing you know, you're flipping straight to the four seam. Those throws across the diamond are going to be much quicker and much more accurate in the end. Well, that's all I have for you today, guys. I really hope everybody learned something, and I hope everyone out there continues to improve that grip over our time off here. As always, if you like this material, give me a like. If you could, please give this video a share so I can help as many baseball players out as possible. And remember, always stay positive, stay healthy, and stay on the ball. We'll see you next time.